Have you ever wondered if God is preparing someone just for you? That deep question so many people carry, who is my future spouse, isn't left unanswered in God's plan. The truth is, God doesn't just create love stories, He designs them with purpose. When God says, this is your future spouse, it's not a random encounter or a coincidence, it's divine orchestration. Every delay, every closed door, every heartbreak, and every season of waiting has been preparing you for the one He has chosen. This isn't just about romance, it's about destiny. The person God brings into your life will not only love you, but also walk beside you in faith, sharpen your spirit, and push you closer to His purpose. So, if you've been waiting, praying, and asking God for clarity, this message will show you how He reveals your future spouse and why you don't have to worry, because His plan is far greater than anything you could imagine. All right, let's expand key point 1 of God says this is your future spouse into a 700-word segment in the style you asked for, intellectual, authoritative, but accessible like Jordan Peterson's lecture flow. When you begin to wonder about the idea of a future spouse, you have to start with the recognition that relationships are not accidents. They're not random collisions of biology or chance encounters in the chaos of life. They are, at least in the deepest sense, structures that God Himself permits and sometimes orchestrates to shape who you are. And if you pay attention to that, it will change the way you view the process of waiting for the right person. Most people believe that finding a spouse is simply about chemistry or attraction or timing. But that's a very shallow way of looking at it. What really matters is whether this relationship brings you into alignment with a higher order. God's order, the moral framework of your life, the call He has placed on you. Because the truth is, when God chooses someone for you, He's not just concerned about your feelings of happiness or your physical desires. He's concerned about your soul, your growth, your capacity to bear responsibility, and your ability to become more than you are right now. Think about it this way: the wrong relationship can completely distort your future. It can strip you of your purpose, weaken your moral strength, and drain the potential that God placed inside of you. On the other hand, the right relationship, the one He has prepared, becomes a catalyst. It sharpens you, disciplines you, and calls you to maturity. And this is why God often withholds clarity until you've reached a certain level of development yourself. Because if He revealed your spouse before you were ready, you would ruin the very gift He intended to bless you with. This is why waiting is not wasted time. It's training. You have to become the kind of person who can actually carry the weight of a covenant. It's not enough to want someone to love you. You have to ask, am I the kind of person someone else can depend on? Am I capable of sacrifice, of fidelity, of resilience under pressure? Those questions aren't romantic, but they are deeply necessary, because marriage, at its core, isn't a feeling. It's a crucible where two people are refined through loyalty and responsibility. Now, many of you might say, well, I've been waiting for years and God hasn't brought anyone yet. And I would argue, maybe the delay is not a punishment, but protection. Perhaps the silence is God's way of giving you time to grow into someone who won't sabotage the very thing you're asking Him for. And psychologically, that makes sense. Human beings are profoundly shaped by their closest relationships. The wrong partner can entrench you in patterns of resentment, bitterness, and chaos. But the right partner, chosen with wisdom, chosen with divine clarity, can elevate you beyond what you thought possible. This means your preparation is not just about looking for the right person, but becoming the right person, because God doesn't just unite two individuals, He unites two stories, two callings, two destinies. And if your story is still unfinished, if your character is still too fragile, He will delay the introduction until you are ready. That's not cruelty, that's mercy. So when God whispers, "This is your future spouse," it's not just an announcement. It's a culmination of seasons of growth, discipline, and transformation. And if you're in the season where you haven't heard that whisper yet, then perhaps your task isn't to keep searching frantically outward, but to cultivate inward strength. Build yourself into someone who can endure, someone who can lead, someone who can serve, because the paradox is the stronger you become, the more capable you are of vulnerability. And vulnerability is the foundation of intimacy. You see, love is not primarily about passion, it's about trust. And trust is built when two people can look at each other and say, "I can rely on you when everything collapses." That's why God waits until you can bear the weight of another person's heart. Because if you can't carry your own responsibilities, you certainly won't be able to carry the covenant of marriage. So the first sign that God is preparing your future spouse is that He's preparing you. He's pruning your weaknesses, testing your patience, strengthening your faith, and teaching you responsibility. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every season of loneliness, these are not accidents. They're the classroom where God is equipping you for the person who will walk beside you for the rest of your life. And when that moment comes, when God finally says, "This is the one," you will recognize it. Not because of butterflies in your stomach, but because there will be peace in your spirit. It won't be chaos. It won't be confusion. It will be a kind of clarity that doesn't shout, but settles you. And you'll realize that all the waiting, all the preparation was worth it. So if you're still in the waiting, don't despair. Don't rush. Don't compromise. Because God's timing is not late and His choice is not random. It is deliberate, precise, and filled with wisdom. And the challenge for you right now is simple. Become the person who is ready to receive the gift you're praying for. Because when God says, "This is your future spouse," He's not just giving you love, He's entrusting you with destiny. Your future spouse is not just a partner for your comfort, they are a partner for your calling. Prepare yourself to be ready for them. Perfect. Let's take K point 2 of God says this is your future spouse and expand it into a 700-word segment with the same intellectual, accessible lecture sermon flow. One of the most overlooked truths about relationships is that when God is preparing your future spouse, He is not only working in you, He is also working in them. And this is something most people fail to recognize because we tend to be self-centered in our waiting. We think only about our desires, our timeline, our loneliness, our longing. But a covenant relationship doesn't revolve around one person's needs. It's two lives being knit together, two journeys converging at the right moment. And if either one of those lives is unprepared, the union collapses under its own weight. So think about this. The delay you experience may not even be about you. It may be that the person God has chosen for you is in the middle of their own transformation. They may be overcoming wounds from their past, healing from trauma, or learning how to walk in maturity. They may be learning responsibility, growing in their faith, or discovering their calling. And you would not want to meet them before that process is complete, because an unfinished person cannot sustain the weight of a lasting relationship. Psychologically, this is a profound reality. Human beings are unfinished creatures. We are constantly in the process of becoming. And relationships magnify that process. If two people come together prematurely, before they have stabilized their own foundations, the relationship becomes a breeding ground for chaos. You see this in couples all the time. Two people meet, there's attraction, maybe even passion, but neither one has done the work to heal, to grow, to discipline themselves. And so the relationship, instead of building them, destroys them. That's why God, in His wisdom, often orchestrates separation before He orchestrates union. You may feel like you are ready. You may even think you've waited long enough, but if your future spouse is not ready, the timing is wrong. And God's priority is not speed, it's strength. He would rather delay your gratification than deliver you into a relationship that ends in ruin. Now, this is where faith becomes incredibly practical, because waiting is not passive, it requires trust. You have to trust that God is not just writing your story, but also writing someone else's, and at the right time, those stories will intersect. This is difficult because it forces you to surrender control, and control is what most of us cling to in the area of relationships. We want certainty, we want guarantees, we want to know now. But that impulse often leads us into desperation, and desperation drives compromise. Think about how many people have settled out of fear. They thought God was taking too long, so they took matters into their own hands. And what happened? Years later, they're living with the consequences of that impatience. Because the truth is, you cannot rush God's preparation. You can only ruin it. And the cost of ruining it is high. It's not just your happiness at stake, but your destiny, your children, your legacy. This is why waiting becomes a test of character. Can you trust God's timing? Even when it feels unfair, can you believe that the delay is not neglect, but protection? That the silence is not abandonment, but alignment. Because when you grasp that, the waiting shifts from frustration to expectation. Instead of resenting the silence, you begin to prepare with faith. Instead of asking, why not now? You begin to ask, what can I become in the meantime? And here's the beauty of it. When two people have been prepared in their own seasons, when they finally meet, the relationship doesn't start from deficiency, it starts from abundance. Instead of clinging to each other out of insecurity, they strengthen each other out of overflow. Instead of demanding the other person heal their wounds, they come together already whole, and their union becomes an expression of strength rather than a cry of weakness. This is the difference between a God-ordained relationship and one you forced out of impatience. One drains you, the other empowers you. One pulls you away from your calling, the other aligns you with it. And that's why God cares so much about timing, because He's not just giving you a spouse, He's giving you a partner in purpose. So if you are in the waiting, remember this, you are not the only one being prepared. God may be shaping your future spouse at this very moment. And when the time is right, the convergence will be undeniable. You won't have to force it, manipulate it, or beg for it. It will carry the weight of peace, clarity, and divine order. And that's the paradox. You can't control it, but you can prepare for it. You can discipline your character, deepen your faith, And strengthen your purpose so that when God does bring that person, you are not a liability, but an asset to them. So trust this truth. God is not slow. He is strategic. And when he says, this is your future spouse, it will not only be worth the wait, it will redefine how you see the waiting. The one God is preparing for you is being shaped even now. And the longer you wait with trust, the stronger the foundation for the life you will build together. Great. Let's move into key point 3 of God says this is your future spouse, and expand it into a 700-word segment with that Jordan Peterson style, clarity, and depth. One of the most difficult things for people to grasp when it comes to God's plan for relationships is that his choice for you isn't simply about personal happiness. It's about alignment with a larger purpose. And that's hard to accept because we live in a culture that tells us relationships are primarily about how someone makes us feel. Do they make me happy? Do they excite me? Do they fill the emptiness inside me? But that view is fundamentally flawed, because it turns relationships into consumer products. You use them for as long as they serve your needs, and when they don't, you discard them. But God doesn't design relationships as consumer experiences. He designs them as covenants, and a covenant is about more than feelings. It's about destiny. When God prepares a future spouse for you, he is not only thinking about your comfort, but also your calling. The person he chooses will not only be someone you can love, but someone who can help carry the weight of the mission he has placed on your life. This is where psychological maturity comes into play. An immature perspective asks, what can this person give me? A mature perspective asks, what can we build together? That shift is everything, because marriage in God's design is not primarily about consumption, but about construction. Two people come together, and together they build something that neither could have built alone. They raise families, they establish legacies, they contribute to communities, they advance the kingdom of God. That's why who you marry is not just a personal choice. It's a spiritual one. And this is why God removes certain options from your life. Think about how often people fight to hold onto relationships that aren't meant for them. They cling to partners who pull them away from God, who diminish their sense of self, who distract them from their calling. But if you look carefully, you'll see that those relationships always crumble under pressure. They may sparkle for a season, but the foundation isn't strong enough to sustain the weight of destiny. God doesn't allow them to last, not because he is cruel, but because he knows what you cannot yet see. This person cannot walk with you where he is taking you. It's similar to the principle of alignment in physics or engineering. If two objects are slightly misaligned at the beginning, the further they travel, the greater the distance between them becomes. What seems like a small difference at the start turns into a catastrophic divide over time. In the same way, if your spouse is not aligned with your values, your mission, and your faith, the divergence will only grow with the years. That's why God's timing is so precise. He doesn't just pair you with someone who makes you feel good in the moment. He pairs you with someone who will remain aligned with you through the seasons of life, through growth, through struggle, through change. Now, this doesn't mean the person God chooses will be perfect. That's another misconception. People wait for a flawless partner as if God is going to deliver an angel wrapped in human skin. But perfection isn't the point. What matters is direction. Are they moving toward God? Are they pursuing growth, wisdom, and responsibility? Are they willing to sacrifice for something greater than themselves? If the answer is yes, then you have alignment, not perfection, but alignment. And that is far more valuable because alignment ensures progress. So while you wait, it's important to understand that God is shaping not just your spouse's character, but their direction. He is bringing their heart, their vision, their calling into a place where it can merge with yours. And the same is true for you. If your vision isn't clear, if your purpose isn't being developed, then even if the right person appeared tomorrow, you wouldn't recognize them, or worse, you wouldn't be ready to walk with them. That's why the waiting season is not wasted time, it's formative time. Every lesson you learn, every challenge you endure, every piece of wisdom you gain is part of the preparation for that covenant. Because the person you marry is not just going to share your bed. They're going to share your burden, your mission, your destiny. And you cannot ask someone else to carry what you yourself have not learned to carry. So don't mistake God's silence for absence. Don't mistake his delays for neglect. What he's doing is aligning lives in ways you cannot yet see. And when the timing is right, when the alignment is set, the introduction will feel less like coincidence and more like inevitability. You'll look back and realize, of course it had to happen this way. No other path would have made sense. The one God has for you will not only fit your heart, but your destiny. And when the alignment comes, it won't just feel right. It will be right